Good evening. I will call this meeting to order for the curriculum committee meeting, which was scheduled for this date. It's now 6 o'clock. And the first order of business is additions or changes to the agenda. Are there any? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. It's unamended.
So moved.
Moved by
Yep,
Melissa,
whatever.
seconded by- Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is that an aye for you too?
Yeah.
Okay. Those opposed? Rachel, was that an aye also? Okay,
If she's hearing us. Hey, Rachel, are you able to hear us? Oh, she's, I don't know if she's frozen.
okay. Public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? Anybody wish to address anything that's not on the agenda?
Rachel said.
She's gonna rejoin back in.
No public comment on anything that's not on the agenda, then we will move on to the actual minutes portion of this. Everyone had an opportunity to read the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? And seconded by Nancy. Is there any discussion, any additions, deletions, or emendations to those minutes? That all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Minutes so carried. Thank you. New business. This is a fall climate survey update, and what is the next step? And Ms. Fredericks, will you entertain that for us and give us a guidance of what that's about?
Sure. So I'm going to speak to some of the work that has happened since I shared the curriculum, the climate survey results last month, or I guess it was November. And it's going to be ongoing, but I'd still like to give you an update on what's been happening in our buildings. So at Spalding, in this building, the administrators are preparing for data analysis experience with the full faculty. That is something that they will be able to then carry forward to their TA and lead with their students in a similar data analysis session to
Teacher advisory, like a home
yes,
base.
teacher advisory is the faculty member with whom kids will stay with for their entire high school experience normally. So there's relationship there and trust. And that is in order to make sure that the action is including student voice in promoting growth in those areas that were identified as sore spots. Safety was the one that was kind of like the biggest red flag. And then it can be more of a ground up impact on the building. And there is much better chance for buy-in among the students and the faculty for any action steps that way, because it's more democratic in nature. At Berry City, there's been a rollout of a positive behavior intervention supports committee, and there is representation from each of the pre-K or teams on that group, and they are tasked with being the conduit for information from each of their teams so that we can identify universal language and expectations for faculty and students to begin experiencing and practicing. And that will have a direct impact on climate because the students will be getting exposure to the same language, the same routines, and the same expectations that will be expected in different settings based on what that setting is. So how does it look in the lunchroom? How does it look in hallways? How does it look in classrooms? Etc. So it isn't necessarily starting from scratch because we've had some of that groundwork laid kind of before the pandemic and before there was some turnover in administration. So that's kind of the good news. There's some framework there, but it's definitely going to require getting all new folk on board. And of course, we've had our students move up through. So getting them also involved in developing these universal expectations is really important. That was specific to the elementary school. At the middle school, similarly, identifying the need for universal language and routines. Also interest in more age-appropriate, relationship-based restorative practices as opportunity for full staff professional development. And that is something that I am supporting the middle school administration with for Berry City. And over at Berry Town, the elementary school, I'll be meeting with their leadership team next week. So I don't have the action steps, but I did bring some of the materials that we're going to be using to discuss. Are going to use the attached data and protocol that is going to help this group decide what the next steps are going to be. They also have a PBIS team that hasn't lost momentum because there hasn't been as much turnover in administration, and there's enough buy-in that sustained through COVID that kind of allowed that to continue. But they never had the survey data before the spring. So if you look at packet, we've now got comparative data from the spring to the fall. The darker color is from the spring and the lighter color is from this fall. So we've talked in this curriculum committee meeting before about how important it is to have longitudinal information and not just see snapshot. So as we kind of move forward with this climate survey, it becomes more and more valid and actionable because we can start to wonder, well, you know, we're doing something well and what did we change, or something happened and we're not doing as well. How can we address that? And that's the kind of work that we need the teacher leaders and faculty and administration and the students to be a part of because they're all contributors to the climate. At the middle school level over at Berry Town, there is a teacher-led scheduling committee. Scheduling kind of impacts everything, including school climate. The way we spend the time kind of shows what the school values. So that is one component. They are kind of interested in project-based seminar in terms of student engagement and getting the materials and units that we are doing with our students to be more project-based. The committee organization and then student-led community or staff-led community building is one of those committees. So they're trying to make sure that the faculty are feeling like they're also getting their needs met in terms of like getting what they need in terms of support, but also feeling like it's a place that they're proud to be a part of and excited to work at. And that is also a result of the personnel climate survey data too.
So I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
What is N?
N is the number of students in that category that filled
So it's
out
raw
the
numbers,
form.
it stands for number.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all I.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it was an help.
No problem. And if N is smaller than 5, so fewer than 5 people
Mhm.
filled out the form, it's not included in the data set.
And how do we know that we're somewhere where we're supposed to be?
I think that we can always aspire to be better. And, you know, being at a 4 would be like everyone has 100% positive perception of climate. So I'm not sure we would ever be satisfied with where we are because we'd always want to improve.
So how do we know we have to improve?
I think when we don't have information or data, all we can do is just ask questions. But now that we have data, we can start to find out and look into areas of concern.
So like
yeah.
this graph here, the one that has the questions broken down, you can kind of see a little bit more as to where maybe some of the more negative numbers would be coming in. And so maybe address those specific concerns.
Just target them based on.
Yeah. But the only way that we can really do it though is by having the year-to-year comparison or even the spring to fall comparison over time. So it's going to take a little time with it.
Is this chart from these two, or is that chart just a separate chart from these?
The big bar graph one is just a compilation of all of those.
Okay, and we
Except
talked about that the last time.
We did.
And I understood that.
And this does not, however, have the spring comparison
Right.
on it. Only the other pages do.
Okay. So then when we get to the school climate,
Mhm.
is that part of or behind the scenes of that first graph?
Isn't that the overall?
It could be like an overall average, like altogether of all the responses and all of the questions. So like there's like one score as like a, and that might have been included in the data set from last month.
So what is this telling me? That's what I'm trying
Okay.
to figure out, what this is telling me. It says school climate. I have an
I see.
idea of
Yep.
what that means, but I'm trying to figure what am I supposed to,
So this is overall, it would be averaging all those 10 or 11 questions
Mhm.
Into one raw score. So for
okay,
instance,
so from this graph here,
Mhm.
it takes all those.
It's a general.
Okay, all right, so they are connected.
for
Okay.
those demographic breakdowns.
And you
yeah.
broke them down by female, male.
Yeah, that was just generated by the platform.
Okay.
So there's
I
a
didn't-
gender one, there's
Mhm.
by year, by ethnicity, so that we had 3 different
Yeah,
bar graphs, all using the same data, just broken down so we could see the year-to-year comparison.
that's correct.
And the score is just, I'm not sure how you came up with that score. I don't know if there was something you're following and if there's a score that we should be in a range of, or,
I think you can look at
Higher is
the,
better, but
higher's better, but 4 is kind of like the perfection. Whenever you're in the 3 range, it's sort of an average. It means that generally, you're going to have a few folks who aren't satisfied, but generally more are satisfied than not. So,
So
yeah,
you-
3 is a
like
good
proficiency
number.
based, it would be like proficient.
Yeah, 3 is like a proficiency based number where you want to be.
So if you start drifting down to 2 in your graphs, then you really have a concern.
Yeah, then there's some more areas for
You can do
concern.
some more digging, and
Indeed.
that's the work I'm supporting in the buildings.
And then they do the digging by using
Something
the
like that.
the questions on the page that says 5.1, the observations, inferences. And so you'll use that to ask,
To help have the conversation.
have a
about
conversation with
the data.
teachers.
Mhm.
And then will the teachers use a similar graph to help have conversations with the students where it's appropriate?
Where it's
Like in
appropriate,
high school, like with the high
Mhm.
schoolers and maybe
Yeah.
the middle schoolers?
and for instance, at Berry City, they have kind, safe, responsible as their kind of like key components. So having a conversation with the students at the elementary end is, you know, what does this look like, sound like, or feel like in the lunchroom? Get their input, compile it, you know, identify the top 5 that the whole grade level or the whole school has kind of identified as the most common or wanted. So then the kids have ownership of it, and they're more likely to support that and have the teachers reflect. How are we doing with this? How was lunch? How did it go? What could we do better? Not big conversations that take up a lot of time, but necessary to do often enough that it sticks.
I just want to note that Terry and Alice have hands up.
Oh yeah.
Terry? Was he first?
Oh, he did have his hand up.
I did. I put it down. That's okay. So have we collected this information through COVID and prior to COVID?
Spring was our first time we've had a climate survey like this.
Like this.
Yeah.
So we have had some previously that are similar or not similar?
Oh.
No, nothing like it.
Okay. So just a follow-up question. So you were talking about lunch. So how does doing a climate survey on lunch impact a kid's education?
So it was just an example of a setting where having universal expectations will help the students know how to be in that space.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that the climate survey specifically addressed.
I could see,
Hang on a second. I'd like to hear Karen.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying that it's not how, there was nothing specifically in the climate survey that says, like, how do you feel in the lunchroom? But all of these spaces combined lead to the student's perception of climate.
Can I take a stab at this one too? I think it might help Terry. Just as a longtime teacher and principal, you really get a handle on the culture and climate of a school with how recess and lunch go. That is pretty universal. I remember it well when we were working together, Chris. It's a far less controlled environment, so it really is an opportunity for kids to learn how to be with each other in what can be a crowded, large, stressful environment for a lot of kids. So lunch and recess in particular, things like bus drop off, all the transitional parts of the day are very, very telling in terms of the overall culture and climate of a school, any school. So it's really important to try to get that feedback and observe it.
And classroom is another setting. I just didn't use it in
but that's a
my
more
example.
controlled environment.
Well, and thank you, Chris, for that explanation, and you too, Karen. I think that's a good explanation. My concern would be that, and I agree that those things certainly help us understand what is the climate at school, but is there more important things that a curriculum department should be doing than studying if everybody's doing what they're supposed to with lunch, where we could anecdotally kind of keep track of that? So I'm sure it doesn't take a long time to add a question or two to this survey. I'm just curious, what's the value? Is there stuff that's more valuable for a curriculum department to be looking at than the lunchroom? That's all. Thank you.
Yeah.
A bad lunch and recess can lead to
I
a
think it
bad
might
class.
Okay. Can I respond real quick
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that?
Sure.
So what might happen naturally is if teachers bring back, we notice that the perception or that the feeling about our school is that students in your class don't behave well enough for teachers to teach. And so they might open that up to a conversation. Why is that? Why are you feeling that? What are some of the reasons that students might feel like their classmates are not behaving? And that will lead to the implications for instruction, getting teachers to be all on the same page with how they react to different situations or scenarios. That kind of cohesion is really essential in order to make the school function in a way that's more routinized for students.
So this is exploratory in nature, to get more information into the.
to a degree,
Okay.
but then leading to action. So
Melissa, you had
Nope.
something you wanted to ask.
No.
Dallas is
Okay,
next.
Alice, next on the line, then Chris. And Nancy. Go ahead, Alice.
Okay, I'm just looking at this, and actually, overall, this is very good information to have. And from having worked with surveys before, if you can get to 80% on anything, you just kind of draw the line across 80%. So anything that is at 80% or above is really very good. And things that are significantly low, are we drawing goals from that? In particular, I'm looking at that question 11 about the students in my class behave so that teachers can teach. And it's an interesting correlation between the findings on that question and question 3, which says, my school wants me to do well, and school 3 and 4 rather, and my school has clear rules for behavior, that the students feel there are clear rules for behavior, but they're having some difficulties in the classroom with what seems to be behavior. So I'm just wondering whether there are going to be some goals and activities drawn between that information so that we can try to move that needle toward 80% in those places where it is significantly low.
yeah, and that's exactly the type of observation I'd expect to be kind of unearthed from the protocol that was attached in the packet. Alice, I really, it's that kind of like critical thinking of the data that's going to lead to those types of action steps. And yes, like the cycle would lead to steps around, well, how, like, what's our goal? How will we know when we get there? And what kind of information are we collecting? And that would be all part of the process too.
Chris Parker.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that, when I look at the questions that were asked as part of this, the questions were not asked specific to any one location in the school. So students were answering just generally about their feelings related to feeling safe at school, treating each other well, etc. So it's not specific to the classroom or the playground or that sort of thing. And important, I think, to remember that kids can best access their education in all parts of the curriculum when they feel safe and feel respected and feel under control and have emotional regulation and have a lunch and a recess or a bus ride that is not out of control or unexpected or stressful. Any place that we have transitions for kids in school between classes, from lunch to recess, back to class, to specials, etc. Those are all places where things can go well for kids or things can go tricky for kids. And we want them to go well for kids as much as possible so that when they get back to the classroom for the reading, the math, etc., that they are well regulated and feel safe enough to settle down and have their brain and their body ready for learning. So all of those areas in the school are important so that kids can best access their education when it's time to do that.
Nancy?
Yeah, so what I'm getting from this is, I'm just going to make it simple, social interaction. That's how I see this, as kids interacting with they come to school, but kids are kids. They don't come already knowing sometimes, they have to stand in line. They have a hard time standing in line. I mean, just to me, kids are kids. And, you're not going to always have one set of rules for every kid. I mean, to me, it needs to be managed differently, but I don't think kids are any different today than they were, years ago, except for there's different pressures as kids get older. But I mean, I think kids tend to act like kids anyways. So I'm trying to figure out how this relates to doing anything different that we normally would do when dealing with kids' behaviors, and just trying to get kids to stand in line, or they come off the bus, or they're going to have social interactions. I mean, I think as a teacher or anybody, as adults, we are aware of those. And then also, the educational part. I know Chris talked about regulating kids. And I just think that's a common part of a teacher's day, is just managing the kids to be able to give them the education. That's just how I'm seeing
Yeah,
it.
and I'd say, like, within my years of being in the profession, it's maybe soft data. It might be data that isn't, driven by statistics or numbers, but my impression in hearing from teachers in our district, teachers in other districts, is that it's gotten worse and harder and more challenging.
Across the board.
So
So could you be more
having-
specific in that terminology as to what's gotten harder, worse, and so forth? Your examples,
sure.
because those are questions that pop up all the time, and it'd
Like
be nice to have definitions on it.
Students being regulated in the classroom,
Mhm.
like self-regulation, the extent to which behaviors can interrupt learning, the vulgarity of language that kids are using, their motivation perhaps, or ability to focus on a task has changed, and
Less discipline coming into the school, and so forth. Is that part of it?
it could be, but
Okay.
we need to be able to focus on
Not
what's in our realm of control, and like building relationships and building routines. That's something that we can control. That's something that we can do.
Okay.
Darby, very talented
Darby?
teacher.
Darby?
I mean, I can give you some very general examples. I'm a veteran teacher of over 25 years. And just in general, our student support, the number of students who need to visit student support has grown exponentially, just in students who say, I need a break, and they need to walk down the hallway and take a break. They need to go and visit the nurse. They need to visit the guidance counselor. They need to speak to somebody. They need to get a drink. They need to be in and out of the classroom. This is just kids who have a difficulty sitting for long periods of time. There's so many more, and I don't think this is just a result of the pandemic. There's so many more needs that students are having. It's a different world. We're not teaching the same kids that we were 5 years ago. The world of the classroom has changed a lot. There's so many more needs that we're seeing now. I
Term
don't
we
know
often
if,
hear.
yeah, absolutely. I don't know if that helps or not, but that's my perspective from a teacher. Thank you.
Just say that the term related to what Darby was just saying is coping skills, and just this ability to cope with the day-to-day stuff is a challenge, certainly not just for kids in our culture and society, but across society right now. That were these challenges. These are big challenges, and we focus on exactly what Karen is talking about, that which we can control, and but it makes it that much more challenging.
Okay, Nancy?
Yeah, I'm not trying to diminish what this is. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it and how it applies. So I don't want to imply that at all. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to use this, and where what it means, and the substance to maybe contributing to what the teacher was just saying. I recognize that the world is different. I recognize that there's kids out there that don't always have the support at home that is needed, and it comes with challenges at school. But I think that's been a long time. I think, maybe we have more of it now. I don't know. But I still think that we recognize it, we deal with it the best we can. And I guess I want to say, if this helps us identify that more and maybe do better, then
Targeted, yeah.
okay.
Okay, are there any other questions on 5.1 of this agenda? Andrea Pullen?
I just had a comment, a public comment. I think, in an earlier budget meeting, I mentioned, please try to be creative as we can to get more paras and behavior interventionists into the classrooms. Please don't cut those. The question 11, students in my class behave so that teachers can teach, is indicative of the problem that is coming about because of the lack of additional personnel. Students who would have had a paraeducator with them in the classroom who don't, or behavior support, because they don't have somebody there with them that normally would be with them, they can be very disruptive to the classroom. And the same thing is the kids who need to go to student support or want to go to student support. The behavior issues have escalated so much that a lot of times you contact student support, there's no one to answer because they've already gone off to deal with another crisis somewhere else. And so there's oftentimes when kids need support and need to leave the classroom, and they can't because you can't send them to student support if there's no one there, or if student support is already full with other students. They'll say, hey, we're overwhelmed right now. So this is indicative of the reason why I don't know how we're going to find more people to come in, but these positions are gravely needed.
And the work that the buildings can do to help address these issues will decrease the amount of kids that are needing to access student support.
That's the goal.
There's not as much demand. It's not just an easy.
So we
flip
have
of
a plan.
switch.
So we have a plan. If we get more staffing in, the plan is,
I would say if people have the tools in the toolbox that
Which
are agreed upon and aligned, they could be way of executing different responses. So when a student is asking for a break, we are all going to be on the same page about what our response is. So they're getting the same message in Ms. Parker's class as they're getting in my class. It's not putting the kid on a roller coaster of like, oh, I'm now in a different class. What's the message going to be, which can be triggering for kids. So it's less like a material thing, but more of an ideology. Like we all need to be on the same page. Yes, there'll be instances where kids have, according to their IEP or something a team has decided upon that might give them a slightly different pathway. But generally speaking, most kids should be able to be supported by the interventions.
and we have that now. We have interventions now, right?
We have some, yeah.
Okay.
They can improve just like any academic intervention.
So what is what we have in place now? What is going to be different with this? What?
Okay. I would just say we need time for our faculty to wrap their heads around the data and collaborate on the changes that they feel like they need to see happen, as well as getting student voice in there. And it's more of a group decision than.
Karen, an example of this is the PBIS work that we're doing, right? So giving teachers an opportunities. We have a lot of new teachers at our K-8 schools, right? In the last couple of years. So these, so teachers are afforded time during professional development time, including when we have those days coming up in a few weeks, to really look at the data, work on a consistent approach to responding to behaviors and building a culture of learning in their classrooms that's the same. So that's the key thing. I think you just addressed that. The kids need the consistency of what the expectations are. And that can sometimes be tricky.
Okay, Terry Real?
Thank you. What role does the parent play in this? At what point in this process does somebody pick up the phone and say, hey, this is going on, and they play an active part in this, an active role?
We do our best to engage parents in these things. I think I alluded earlier to the fact that the coping skills in our culture, it's not just limited to kids. We're seeing that with adults too. And but our team is working very, very hard. Teachers working very hard to engage with parents in this case. But that can be a tricky one, Terry. There's no mistake in it.
Well, so I understand, Chris, and working hard versus a parent gets a call every single time. We can't get between parents and their kids. And I understand that kids need to behave in school and that they need to access their education and all these things. However, the parent has a responsibility, and I think we need to do better than we do our best. And I understand that you probably do it the majority of the time, but the parent has to be part of this process, I think. So thanks.
I also wanted to say about PBIS schools, often there's a month-to-month change in what the focus is. So using the data of how many behavior referrals have we had related to the classroom or the hallway or the playground, cafeteria, and then, okay, so February's goal is we are going to reinforce that area so that we can get that data to improve. So a place where there might be more physical interactions between kids, or it might be the noise level that's interrupting classrooms or different things like that. And so that month-to-month data is specific and reactive to, we are struggling with this in our school right now. So like Berrytown, Berry City might have different focuses for any given season or month based on their data of like, so that's when you say, Nancy, like what would be different, that would be the type of thing that would be different of like, we are really having a hard time right now on the bus or at dismissal or in the classroom. And so we're going to use that data to say, every morning at morning meeting, we're going to do this differently. We're going to reinforce those expectations, or we are going to positively reinforce with like the PAWS, PAWS points that they do at Berrytown, so that we can change that data. And then we see, oh, we had a positive outcome from that. So next month, what's hard for us now? Oh, the cafeteria. We've had so much noise. We've had so many, whatever
dealing
it is.
with things like that. But to me, there's a lot. I mean, I've been here. I've been in the different schools and seen, and to me, you have a lot of things in place already. Interventions. So in my mind, I'm thinking, where are you going to go with this? Because you've got support, you've got BIs, you've got teachers that come in, and and so I'm trying to figure out where you're going and what's going to be different than, to me, you've got a lot in place right now.
And we're kind of triggering into intervention and enrichment programs.
We are.
Yes. So
Okay.
we're there.
Okay. Thank you.
So Karen, do you want to take us through the intervention and enrichment programs?
Sure. So our schools call this different things, either win block, what I need, or menu block or menu time. And ultimately, it stands for the same type of thing. Kids have this time of their day to be able to attend. It's not a choice-driven time, but they're placed in classes that are targeted to meet their need. And whether that means they're getting supports below grade level, at grade level, or above grade level. The work of this curriculum committee has led to my being interested in improving and clarifying what that time looks like for our teachers and our students. So I kind of put an all call out to faculty to just share some of the things that you're doing in your win blocks, so that we can just create a library of ideas and learning activities that are happening. And this is a snapshot of that library. And I think if you have some time to look through some of these win block activities, you'll see that there is really creative ways to engage kids in meeting their specific learning goals that involve creative critical thinking and collaboration and community development, all things that are good for all our learners.
Focus on our strategic plans.
It's our, and it's almost like, yes, optimally, this is the type of things that is taking up all of our students' days. But we're lucky to have what we have with it. And I'm excited to see kind of our WIN program expand and grow. And I know we've had comments about this block of time in the past where it hasn't been students' experience to be engaged in interesting activities, but you know, it's an area for growth, and I think we're at a good point to make some changes, and there's a lot of good things going on that that are really exciting.
Beauty of it is all kids can access it. That's regardless of what their skill set is. You know, how did you put it? What I need. I mean, every student, regardless of their level, has needs, and this is getting that.
So, nope, you got.
I'm going to hit Josh Howard first. Josh?
Yeah, so speaking of WIN, I think it could be a really good program, but from experience, it looks like it needs a lot of help. So, for example, I have two daughters. My older daughter, she's kind of ahead on everything, so she gets put in this WIN class, and they end up doing things like just make a golf course or something like that, like make-believe stuff, no education to it. I'd like to see her challenged to her next level. My other daughter, she has a disability. Oh, I can't remember her name. It's basically like dyslexia for math. And so she was put in math WIN with a math interventionalist. She asked for help and was told to try harder. So I don't know if these are really working for every kid. So maybe looking at that a little bit deeper would be nice.
Thanks, Josh. Nancy?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering the same thing because I've heard different things about, especially the kids that need additional challenges. Is there a program, or in your choice of words, where kids can access? So if there's a child that needs to be challenged, when you say is that a student's choice, or is that the fact that you have a program that if this child needs to be challenged, that they have a program and a curriculum in place that will keep them on task to be challenged and get their education, so when they leave, it's going to be good for them, successful.
We don't have tracking in the elementary or the middle school, so there's no separate pathway for different ability level groups.
Like throughout for the whole day.
For the
That's
whole
what you mean,
day, yeah. So like all the students access their core classes, language arts, math, social studies, and science. This WIN blocks outside of that. And it allows for, it's not choice based, it's based on just academic data, teacher observation.
On that child's academic data? Okay.
Yeah.
That's a help.
An example of that, we should. Oh, go ahead.
So if well, let's say Josh's daughter, school comes easy to her. Is there a set thing in place for her that the teacher knows that she should be doing and working on to keep her challenged?
The WIN group that she would be in would be paired to meet her ability level, and like I mentioned, like we can tighten that up, and this has brought that to the surface. And I'm excited for that work to happen.
Excellent. That's good.
And the WIN blocks are with different teachers,
Yeah, just a minute.
not the classroom teacher. So it's not her teacher, it's the WIN teacher.
Right, and that's
So
okay.
they like switch.
I don't think it matters
And
as long as there's a program in
Within
place.
her own like regular program, her math program, for instance, there's opportunities for kids who, you know, get it right away and are ready for a challenge. So that's built into like our academic programs.
Regular math class.
Okay.
Darby Hebert, I just got they're stacking up.
Okay.
Darby Hebert?
Okay, thank you very much. As I mentioned before, I am a fifth grade teacher. I currently am assigned to fifth grade social studies. I am a veteran for 25 years. I've been teaching. I have 2 endorsements on my license. I am a K-6 elementary teacher, which allows me to teach fifth grade social studies. I am also a 5-9 English with a highly qualified English endorsement on my license, just to give you that background. Number one, I want to let you know that in my 5th grade social studies, I make sure that I differentiate. That in my regular classroom, I make sure that students across the board, for example, we just finished a research-based project on Indigenous people, that regardless of where any 5th grade student is, they are able to research Indigenous people, whether that I have students who are on IEPs or whether I have students who are above and beyond, they are challenged to do research. I have 3 phases of research that they are all being challenged. So they are challenged in the regular classroom. That's number one, that I want you to know that that's going on in the regular classroom. Number 2, I also teach a WIN class, a What I Need class, which is literacy based. Okay, and that's because of that's what I choose to teach for what I need. And I've been teaching this is my 2nd year teaching this, which is for proficient and above standard readers. The way I teach my WIN class is a reading and writing WIN class, and I address the students who happen to be in my class at that time, and I build a literacy community, and we talk about books. I make sure that I take the Golden Dome list, which is from the Vermont Department of Libraries. They take 25 books every year, which are for middle school students. I read as many of those books as I can. We talk about those books. I challenge kids to read those books. We read them together. And we build a literate community where we talk about those books, we enjoy those books, we love those books, we talk about what we like about them, what we don't like about them, and we build, as a matter of fact, just today in the hallway, coming back from lunch, I had a 6th grader who was a student from last year tell me that she just finished a book and she couldn't believe how great it was, and we were exchanging what the themes were, how we connected it to what was going on right now in the House of Representatives and how they couldn't decide on who was going to be Speaker of the House, and connected it to what was going on in this book and the themes that were going on, and building this literate community. And it was just a glorious moment that I have to share with you right now. But this is the community of how we are addressing the needs of even those above and beyond readers, of building what they need. Right now in my class, what they need is learning about sentence variety, how to write compound, complex, and compound complex sentences, how they will do a morphology unit, how they're learning Greek and Latin roots. We'll do that next quarter. It's what they need right now. So yes, the interventionists address what those students need, but we're making sure that we are addressing all students in what they need. Thank you very much.
Harvey,
Yes, sir.
Harvey, I appreciate your passion on this. You've
Thank
given
you.
us a good heads up into this area. It's wonderful. I'm going to go on to Karen Heath. Karen?
Yep. Hi. I think I just turned my my camera
Yeah,
on.
we can see.
I am serving now as the instructional coach at Berry City and Berrytown, and we are right. This is so timely because I'm in the middle of meeting with teachers at all grade levels to look at mid-year literacy data and figure out what these groups should look like, and make sure we are challenging the kids who need that challenge and getting intervention for the kids who do. So I meet with teachers at each grade level to look at where have kids come between September and now. What do we need to do to adjust? What do we need to do? I just started today at Berry City, like a 2nd grade sort of high readers group, because the teachers felt like they weren't able to challenge those kids. They were bored in the regular instruction. So we are I'm just saying in terms of that win, or we sometimes call it small group time, we look at data, we adjust groupings, and we try to make sure that at that time of the day, every kid is getting instruction that's appropriate for them.
We appreciate that. Alice Farrell.
Yes, my comment really is I'm listening to everybody and I'm kind of getting an answer to my question already, but have we looked into, or should we be looking into, the likes of we have the differentiation, continuous progress, and how that can affect students' work? I don't need an answer now, but maybe that might be something we could look into, because that may also answer some of the questions about what the kids were saying in the survey about the teachers being able, the behaviors affecting the teachers being able to teach. If you have students who are challenged and engaged, you may not see an increase in improper behaviors because they are engaged and they are challenged. So they're working on something rather than disrupting. So that's I think maybe that might be a good thing to look at the likes of continued differentiation, greater differentiation, and continuous progress. I think that might be good.
Thank you for that observation. Chris Parker.
I was number 3.
Nancy was number
But that's
3.
okay. I'll let number 4 go before number 3. That's
Take
okay. Go
notes.
ahead.
Two things. One, I wanted to say, when my kids were at Berrytown, what I appreciated about the WIN block was that it was responsive to individual students and where they were right then at that cycle. So there's multiple WIN cycles in a school year. And so one WIN block, I might have had one of my kids who needed a little bit of shoring up. They might have been a little bit below in something around writing or a math area. And so their WIN was for kids who needed some extra help, some intervention to meet the standard. And then the next round, they might be right where they needed to be. And so then they had a different WIN block that was more about kids who were above grade level. And so then they were doing more enrichment. So I appreciated that there was flexibility around meeting those kids where they were at and giving that intervention to them at the level they needed right at that time. I found the system to be very responsive to kids' needs. And then the other one question I had, Karen, is there's so many good things here in this chart of all these different programs and interventions that are happening during WIN blocks. How are these being shared between Berry City and Berrytown so that people don't have to recreate the wheel around like, whoa, this is such a great idea, we should do that,
Yeah,
you know, to have cross-pollination of good ideas.
One of the things I'm so grateful about how this is kind of surfaced is because there wasn't a way really that was being shared even within buildings before. But now this library is visible to both schools. There's a column for the teachers who submitted it with their email address so that people can get in touch directly with the colleague who put something down. And I'm already hearing about how it's starting to like trickle through and influence that block of time.
So to get things back on track, Nancy.
Thank you. So Darby, I just want to say thank you. And it sounds like you're doing a great job, and especially with the kids that need to be challenged. But do we know that all the teachers I guess what I'm looking to know is the curriculum for challenging these kids assigned by certain people, or do the teachers decide that on their own for these students that they have?
It would be based on the teacher's
decide.
discretion.
Okay.
But the more consistent and cohesive we can be in our instructional guidance system, which I've been working on, and our curriculum maps, all things that need a lot of updating, the closer we'll get to making sure that's a fair and equitable experience for all our students.
So when do you think you'll have that?
Well, according to that 5-year plan, I'm hoping for the website, which is like where everything's gonna be upfront and visible, to be at least ready to share among this group and our faculty by the end of the year. But it's a lot of work.
Understood. But in the meantime, do we have a metric or some way to know that the teachers are, that you're making sure the teachers are challenging the kids that need to be challenged? Because Josh is not the only parent that I've heard this from. It's been other parents that their kids are saying they're just sitting there doing whatever. So I guess
that's unfortunate.
yeah, and I'm just wondering, you know, if how that is all, how it's given down to the teachers, or is it?
I think the metric would be growth comparisons, which we do get in our local assessment data. So it doesn't just tell us like they're on track for meeting standard. It shows how much growth that they've made between the 2 screening windows or 3 screening windows. So a student on the low end could look like they're still in like urgent intervention, but they could have made a lot of growth. And same as at the higher end too. And if they're not, that's an opportunity to reflect. Okay, they're above grade level, but why are they not making growth? What can we do more?
And this is my last question. I'm sorry.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm positive. Is the curriculum, like Darby has clearly stated what she's going to be learning on for the next, what she's done and what she's going to do next, is that shared with the parents? Or is it on the website that a
Not at
parent?
this time. No.
And when is the plan for that?
Well, when is I'm not sure if it's in all of our report cards at this point in time or not, but it could be an Aspire to make sure that that's valued as.
Because that's another thing that I hear from a lot of parents. They want to know what the curriculum is. If they have somewhere they could go to look to see what grade level, what their students are going to be learning.
Absolutely.
And have some behind the scenes information about the subject that they're going to be learning, to me would be a huge help. I'm done.
Not yet.
Good.
But
I have 2 more. There was a Sue that was up. Sue.
Yeah, I saw Sue too.
I just wanted to say thank you. That's all. I wanted to say thank you to Darby. It is so incredible hearing a teacher's point of view and the enthusiasm and just exactly what she's doing and what's going on. It's so exciting listening to that and to hear Karen, what she said, and Karen Fredericks. I think you're amazing. And I just feel like this is just going in a good direction. I am so thrilled with this meeting tonight. And I wish more teachers like Darby would come in just log in online and just speak for just a minute like she did, to just ensure all the parents and families of the students of what's going on. It's very encouraging, and I appreciate it all very much.
Get them online.
Josh Howard, and then we'll wrap this segment up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll reiterate that for Madam Hebert. There was I wish all teachers were kind of like that. It sounds like it's a fantastic win class, but also shows me that maybe the answer to a lot of problems are sitting looking us right in the face. Why can't every class be like a win class? If we went to like a homogeneous classroom style and putting kids together that are kind of grouped together in the same ability for a certain subject and challenge them to whatever the next level might be. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's going to save a lot of trouble at the same time. And I'd love to see that discussed at some point, or at least the benefits of having a homogeneous style classrooms.
And I have one more follow-up myself. Several parents have called me, and we've even had our chair from this committee question the pistol program that they had at Barrytown, whether or not that could come back. And is the WIN kind of a substitute to that, would you say? From what I'm hearing, it sounds along a similar track line.
I'm not sure it's a substitute. It's just a equitable philosophy. All students deserve the opportunity to have grade level instruction. We are lucky in our district to be able to value having the extra what I need time built into our schedule. I talked about what schedule is valued earlier. And administration all value it too. So I feel like we're lucky to have that as part of our experience for both schools.
If our educational system allows those students who want to really learn, I mean, we shouldn't hold them back. I think that's why what some of these parents had said to me about the pistol program allowed them to kind of accelerate and take on more work. So I vented it. You have another question?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I would like to follow up on the pistol program because I'm reading in the notes, which I should have had the discussion when you were talking about the prior meeting. You, Mr. Hennessy, stated you were going to have Ms. Pearson come in and have a discussion about that pistol.
And then we realized.
And then the next, and it was supposed to be added to the next agenda.
Yeah, we realized though that we had that exact discussion in our April curriculum meeting. I would advise folks, it was really, we thought, put to rest. I think we were surprised that came up again. So if you look at I think it was the April 7th minutes in the recording, we had a long discussion about how what was the pistol program back years ago has evolved more into this WINS philosophy and approach, where with more kids having access to enrichment opportunities. So we had that discussion and in a lot of detail.
I remember that, but I also remember that we were supposed to have a follow-up, which we did, and I think it keeps getting brought up. I guess people are looking for an answer because this kind of stopped as of COVID as to how it got terminated, except for COVID. And so is there not an interest? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think it was necessarily due to COVID either.
That's what it says in here.
It was before COVID.
There was there's a opportunity for a challenge reading course. It's in the budget. It's just not being,
It hasn't been
the position
filled.
hasn't been filled.
It hasn't been filled yet. And that would be very similar to the challenge reading program that we have at Barry City right now for grades 3 through 6, which interestingly, as Ms. Hebert was speaking, very similar approach that Heather Harrison is using with those kiddos at Barry City. So that opportunity is there, but the sort of pull out all day pistol thing, that hasn't been in place for years. Because we're trying
And
to
it would have
this.
been a class period, just like this is a class
Exactly,
period. It wouldn't have been
exactly.
all day. It would
Right.
have just been
Just
one
a
class
class
period.
Exactly.
So maybe we need to have a more formal discussion about it. Just
Can I share what Sarah said too?
yeah,
Is that
that's up to.
Actually why I
Oh.
brought it up, because Sarah was a strong advocate of the pistol
Well,
program, so.
this is what she wrote in an email. I don't know if that needs
Sure.
to go anywhere. The points I wanted to make is that if we end up discussing the pistol program, I would want to make it clear that the way it was set up before, it pulled kids from their core classes, meaning that they were missing curriculum that was needed or required for all students, and that it was exclusionary and limited to who could receive those opportunities. With the intervention enrichment systems that we have and are putting in place, we are ensuring that all kids get all their core classes and that all kids have both intervention and enrichment opportunities as they need.
So we are trying to address that tonight with this discussion about the enrichment and intervention, which is really what the goal is here. You've been describing it, Karen, and teachers, Karen Heath and Darby have come in and describe what's going on. Another example of that, we just sent out a showcase today that if you guys get a chance to see a really successful WIN group that is happening with some above grade level kiddos at Barry City, in Jody Leone's class. It's a great quick 3-minute video that we just shared with the whole community today. They won $500 with an entrepreneurial project they did. It's very neat. So
And their shirts are so cute.
They're
I
awesome.
watched that video
Yeah.
today. Oh my
They're
God, they look
awesome.
so proud.
But
Yeah.
that's the type of thing we want to build and
all.
have like
for all.
be a generator for the community, like have businesses.
Yeah.
We've got an idea. Can your students help us figure this out?
kids were dying to talk about this. They
Yeah.
won their work, won $500. They were thrilled.
So the wind is basically taking over the
Indeed.
pistol. Okay.
Well, and, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just I didn't want to digress long into that. I was only trying to get the commentary that I received and also what the chair of this committee was advocating at the time. If Sarah has aligned her position saying that the wind and stuff is covering that, I'm fine with all of it. I'm just racing to catch up in that. And if it doesn't hold back the kids who really want to learn more, then we're there, right?
I was just going to say, I saw a lot of those components in these descriptions of
That's what I'm
other
reading.
wind blocks and ways that that is being done at both schools with the different challenges, even the newspaper, the reading challenge, all of those things are, that's right, all of those things are, yes, are diving deeper into literature and understanding that at a deeper level.
I'll throw my disclaimer in. I wasn't advocating for nor opposing a pistol type thing.
Yeah,
I
you
was
get
just
it on the
getting it
radar.
out there.
Oh, yeah.
That's all.
I'd also
Just
like
a
to
discussion.
what Chris just said, acknowledge something earlier that Josh was saying, that it's not perfect yet. There are still areas for growth across some grades where we can have these opportunities, and not just for kids who are performing above grade level, but across all levels. Really, there's room for improvement still. This is all like movement, right? Progress, and
But getting a lot of traction right now.
exactly.
So on that note, is there anything else? Anybody have any additional comments, questions, or concerns about the interventionist and enrichment programs? Seeing none, we will move on to old business. And under old business,
None.
I actually have one item that it's not necessarily old business, but there's nothing here that is in a roundtable format. So I'm going to ask a question. I've been reading in the newspapers in Chittenden County and other places where there have been interviews dealing with the SBAC scores. Pan out. Have we got ours ready to go out?
Yeah, the SBAC scores, there's lots of stuff about that right now, but they've been, we reached out to the Department of Agency of Education.
I
Those
can find his email.
those scores have been embargoed, which basically means they're not available to the public yet.
Yeah.
In August, we shared a summary of our spring scores, which we really, in retrospect, I mean, it was okay. It was a summary. We maybe shouldn't have done, but we cannot have those sent out now. I know I think the main reason and the explanation we get from the agency is it's deeply flawed data due to the pandemic and needs to be, when it is eventually shared, taken with a real grain of salt. I believe Karen and I shared that in August. But right now, it being embargoed means we are precluded from sharing that information. And the state has moved away from the SBAC. We've got a whole new,
So that would be the second part of that question,
Yeah.
is like, what are we learning about what's coming next and how everybody's going to be up to speed to do that test instead of the SBAC?
Well, the reason why I brought it up at all, I didn't even know that they were released and they were out until I read an article actually dealing with one of our former curriculum directors, which was Jackie Tolman.
Yeah.
And she was interviewed in a major article in the Essex West.
let's say,
And there was a whole long column on where they had moved through. So obviously they're not keeping it secret up there. They let it out. I didn't know this was a classified item, but anyways, I just thought I'd bring it up because
no, it's
I
been
know
an
that
issue.
And our
We've been-
summary.
Yeah.
We shared the summary.
We've been scratching our head on this one too, with information we're getting. I think what it really comes down to, and Jackie, I think it was Tolman addressed this too. You really have to be very careful with what you do with this data and the circumstances under which these tests were given. Lots of kids out, lots of teachers out coming out of this thing. It's going to be very interesting to see with Signia. Is that what it's called? We got a lot of work to do with. Is it Signia? I can't remember.
It's going to be called BT-CAP, Vermont.
What's the company that's
Cognia.
Cognia?
I was like, it's some weird word.
Cognia,
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
But anyway, this is something that, it's January and the timetables to do this in the spring. There's still a lot of unknowns about it, about how we're going to execute it, what we're going to use it for. lot of questions about this stuff. That's why, and you've talked about this a lot, we're really trying to, you know, not that we're moving on from it, but really focus more on our local assessments that we're doing throughout
we
the
do
year.
have the historical data.
We do.
We have all of that imported before they shut it down.
So how do we know how well our students are doing? I mean, we talked about testing as a mechanism. I'm not saying the testing is the only thing that we do, but we should have some sort of component that leads us to, are they improving? Are they not improving? Are they advancing? I mean, this right now is on most parents' mind. I know it's on mine for my grandkids that are in the system. I'd like to know if they're able to compete in the world when they get through their K through 12.
Exactly. We gotta
I
have
mean, that's
some kind of measurement.
it's an important feature to what happens to their lives, is making sure that they got a real quality education in there. With all the problems and everything aside, if you don't have some sort of mechanism in place to find out how they're stacking up, then how do we know if they're performing well or not?
Right.
I
And-
guess that's what the SBAC I thought was going to do, but now we've got.
Right when we were getting used to it. Goes away. But our local assessment for literacy and math is aligned with Common Core, which is our state's kind of guiding principles, and it is just one measure. Students who are meeting or above grade level, we can feel fairly confident that what we're doing is working. We're going to keep doing it. For students who are below grade level, we'll have another battery of diagnostic assessments to try and kind of find out what's going on.
But do we have something for this year? I mean,
Yeah, we use that.
Okay.
This we're in our second screening window, so this will be
Okay.
we'll have
We've been
comparative
sharing that
data to
information.
the fall.
So it was announced that the Agency of Education is on December 22nd.
Yeah, I had that
Yeah,
up too.
yeah, they're going to release it. They're going to release it in the
Um,
very near future.
It says
It's
all
for the annual
assessment results
snapshot.
from 2022 are embargoed, not available to the public.
Not yet, but they're coming out. They're
State
gonna-
level assessment results will be released later this winter.
Yeah, there will be a
We don't have
caveat
snow,
coming
we
from the
don't have
agency
snow.
with that, about how to use it for sure.
They're working on an announcement for the near future.
Okay, is there any other old business before we go down? Josh Howard?
Yeah, speaking on tests, I mean, to put my opinion out there on what these tests are for, it's basically I look at these tests not to say, oh, our school is this, our school is that. It's how we stack up against everyone else. Everyone takes the same test. I want to see where we line up. As far as the previous test results that were presented, I think back in August, I've asked a few times to see if I can get those scores broken down by building and not by demographic, just simple numbers, so I can get it. I'm just going to ask again if I can get that at some point. And with that, I wait to see how we improved or didn't improve with the current test scores that'll come out.
Who wants to entertain that? Is that in the form of a question, Josh?
Yeah, I'm still looking. I'd like to get the some numbers from just per building for the test scores that were presented back in August. They were broken out by demographic and not by building, and I'd really like to take a gander at that and compare to last year's.
Is that something you can entertain him on?
It might, well, no, because it was embargoed and I wasn't supposed to share it to begin with.
Right, exactly. That was the problem.
But I guess what's there is, it's too late for me to not share that.
Well, I think what'll be interesting, when the annual snapshot comes out later this winter and spring, we're going to have this information. It should be broken down by the schools at that point. But I think the real bang for the buck is these local literacy math assessments we're doing. We are in that second window now.
So Josh, if and when I'm able to share it, I would do that. It's just our hands are tied right now.
Okay, that's good answers we need to get. Let's move on to the next item. Items for future agendas. Is anyone on the committee would like to add items to the next meeting that we will have on February 2nd? Alice?
In the parking lot, there is reflections on the consolidated federal programs. I just was wondering, and again, not tonight, don't need an answer tonight, but is there any kind of a cost benefit analysis that's going on? There's a lot of consultants that are being brought in, or for various reasons, including instructing professionals in how to instruct. Is there any cost benefit analysis that's being done to show that those consultants are having any effect on our professional staff? That would be very interesting to see.
Shall we pull items out of the parking lot that we have? I mean, we have the DSA.
I think the
development
DSA
zone.
was supposed to be for February anyways, for
Okay,
our October minutes.
item 1,
November minutes.
consolidated federal programs. Would there be able to be a report on that?
I mean,
I can.
I mean, February 2nd, I mean, we can look at
Just
it.
asking.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we can look at it for
do
sure.
my best.
Yeah.
I'm
I
going
know
off the
some
chart.
contracts we do like mid-year reviews. And
Right.
kind of
It just
stop.
might be premature in the middle of the year. That's why I
We
don't
do
know.
like a mid-year review and then do maybe a more full review once.
So should
school-
we-
Like wouldn't after school,
Yeah,
like in the summertime would
It's
be a
kind
good.
of tricky to triangulate. I feel like what you're asking for, Alice, is like, so we invested in the subscription. How do I know for sure this investment in this particular subscription has led to student gains? So it's tricky.
Hard to- yeah.
I think maybe like some of the bigger contracts we have, it might be easier to get different types of data on, like our like the investment for the coaches, for instance. We can get some data from teachers' feedback and student results. But some of the information in the CFP it's just going to be too hard to like extrapolate. Like, is this having an impact on student learning directly? That's just my.
So how about professional development, which is the only other item in the parking lot? Is there any kind of an update that could be done at the next meeting?
We'll
or
be
not?
coming off of our first our in-service days.
I was gonna
in
say, yeah.
January. Talk about some of the stuff that happened there.
And that would be part of my question too, is there teachers going into a professional development, what they knew going in, what they knew coming out, and whether or not they've applied that in their classrooms? How is that doing? That's kind of what I'm looking for, to see whether there really is any impact from those various sources of professional development. And then my other question, not for now, but is anyone, because we have a number of teachers on emergency licenses and a number of very rookie provisional licenses, is anybody assisting those individuals and giving them any guidance in what courses they might be taking in their own private, using our system of providing college courses for individuals? Is anybody advising them on what courses might be good for them to take in order to be a better teacher? And again, not for tonight, but it's a question that I have about whether or not these folks are taking the right kind of courses to really improve as professionals.
Should we add that to the parking lot? I wonder if Karen wants to say anything on that.
Karen.
Point of order.
Yeah.
Point of
Yes.
order. We're discussing agenda items. We're not
Really are.
holding discussion on the items.
Thank you. I guess I wasn't the only one lost in that. Okay, good.
But we can, Andrea, we can put things in parking lot though for future agendas too, right?
We can, but like we seem to be having long discussions and questions coming out. We should just be, okay, here's an item for future agenda with a
Yeah,
parking
so
lot for February.
I would like to suggest maybe add to a parking lot. I guess it would be D, although if we're moving parking lot item A to
And-
the agenda,
and
to add it,
C.
yeah, to add, and C.
Yeah.
So to add to the parking lot, having some sort of feedback on, the teachers who have provisional licenses, what sort of instruction they're getting or what sort of guidance they're getting on courses that they're taking to be better teachers and to obtain a more permanent license.
That becomes the new B, and consolidated federal programs is
Well,
the A.
Tina will renumber them as she sees fit, as she takes, adds and subtracts. So we just
Yeah.
need to give her a quick little,
Just add that.
guidance for staff using provisional and emergency licenses.
Yes.
Okay, we got that straight. That's starting, if there's other things to add, we'll go out in the emails that will follow.
Yeah.
Okay, next meeting date is February 2nd, 2023, 6 p.m. here at the library via Google Meets. And do I have a motion for adjournment?
Yes.
Oh, you could wait to get out of the chair.
I know.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Melissa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Non-debatable. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Good night,
That sounds
everybody.
good.
Very good.